Miss Val is celebrated as one of the most iconic coaches in gymnastics history, praised for her decades-long career and her groundbreaking coaching philosophy.
As a society, we honor the people at the top of the pyramid. We effusively applaud those people who win championships.
Her methods revolutionized the sport and brought unprecedented success to UCLA's gymnastics program, cementing her place as a legend. But beneath the polished legacy lies a different story. In the early years, before she became the coach everyone admired, Miss Val's tactics were far from graceful. She manipulated, trash-talked, and stepped on her gymnasts to climb the ladder and secure wins. For years, her early missteps remained hidden, overshadowed by her later triumphs. It seemed like her past would never come to light. More importantly, was she truly an icon, or an overhyped marketing scheme from UCLA, used to recruit the best talent? On August 20th, 2020, Miss Val's pristine reputation would face a shocking new discovery. Her name was Alyssa Beckerman, a former UCLA gymnast who knew a different side of Miss Val's gift wrap, and she had had enough of this perfect image and trophy leader persona. She decided she had remained quiet for too long, and what she did next would change everything.
Dear Miss Val, it's me, Alyssa.
Alyssa Beckerman. A name known in gymnastics for grace, flexibility, and beautiful lines, was a true performer in every sense of the word. She was an athlete, destined for greatness, trained by two of the sport's most recognized and respected coaches. But Alyssa faced intense and sometimes cruel scrutiny by those surrounding her throughout her career. For many years, she kept these harsh comments and horrible actions inside. But years later, she wrote an open-form letter exposing everyone involved in her tragic experience as an athlete. In doing so, Alyssa shocked the gymnastics world with the harsh realities of what elite gymnastics was really like, and more importantly, how the coaches of the sport treated their young stars. In this video, we will discuss the highlights and questionable moments of Alyssa's career. We will also visit parts of the open-form letter she wrote and posted on Twitter that helped change the sport, and call out corrupt coaches who used their power and prestige to create a toxic culture in gymnastics. Alyssa started gymnastics at 5 years old and worked with a local coach in her hometown until moving to Ohio to train under Mary Lee Tracy. She would compete with the national team from 1997 to 2000. Tracy, who was responsible for developing several Olympians by this point, was a completely different style of coaching than what Alyssa was used to, and this quickly became an issue Alyssa had no choice but to deal with if she wanted to continue her gymnastics. As she moved up the ranks, according to Beckerman behind the scenes, it was a culture of anxiety and silence, where eating disorders, harassment, unmanageable expectations, and control, in and out of the gym, were the foundation of her experience. Tall for a gymnast at 5'3", Alyssa would become known for extending lines and artistic flair. On beam, she had many unique skills showing mastery in dance and flexibility. A favorite was her full turn to front aerial. By 2000, Alyssa had established herself as one of the most beautiful and artistic of the national team. As a result, at the national championship that year, she became the champion on the beam and took silver on bars.
She stylizes all of her moves.
A full turn right into a front aerial. Very nice.
Oh, she is really finessing this. This is nice.
Her bars showcased her clean lines, while her floor routines stood out for their artistry and intricate turns. In 1999, Alyssa Beckerman competed for a spot on the U.S. World Championship team. She handled the pressure through the first 2 rotations with grace. However, this was the start of the noticeable tension in her relationship with Mary Lee Tracy. After a fall on beam, a beast came out in Tracy, and frustration boiled over as she scolded Alyssa on national TV. Despite the tension, Alyssa fought back with a brilliant floor routine, securing her spot on the world team and proving her resilience under pressure. Although she earned a spot on the 1999 team, a broken wrist sidelined her before the world competition. The injury, was a devastating setback. It also deepened the strain. In her relationship with Mary Lee Tracy, as she was still pushing Alyssa to train 10 hours a day with a broken wrist. What's noticeable is Mary Lee's attitude changes when speaking with Alyssa versus her other athletes. No matter what Alyssa does in competition, nothing seems to be enough for Tracy as she criticizes and critiques Alyssa's every move.
NBC Sports welcomes you to the Fleet Center in Boston, Massachusetts for the 2000 Olympic Trials.
Still nursing her injured wrist a year later due to inadequate healing time, Alyssa entered the 2000 Olympic trials in 5th place. It was a 6-person team for Sydney, but finishing in the top 6 didn't guarantee anything. No one really knew what they needed to make the team for Sydney. The selection process was complete fraud controlled by Bella Caroli. On day 1 of the 2-day competition, Alyssa made several mistakes. On floor, she nearly falls on a punch
slowly
front.
chipping away at her Olympic dream with mistakes like this. I agree with Mary Lee. This was a tremendous save.
Look how close, though.
Had sat this down, I think it would have been the end. She holds on to that, but she shouldn't be putting herself in that position in the first place. She's better than that.
And the narrative around her making the Olympics starts to turn ugly.
Oh, wow. Unreal. Unbelievable.
Her vault was executed well, but only started at a 9.6.
Best I've seen her do it all week.
The commentary from the Olympic trials coverage goes downhill from here. You start to wonder, what purpose was this narrative? Alyssa is a gymnast at Olympic level. The need to discuss what should be considered private coach-athlete dynamic here seems to be targeted. The worst part is these harsh remarks stemmed from her coach, Mary Lee Tracy. Imagine what they did to Alyssa's confidence,
What happened on
especially going into day 2.
Huh? Checked
my
out.
foot on the...
Yeah, but how many times, Alyssa? You gotta always keep going no matter what.
Okay.
All right, let's get ready for the next event.
You know, Mary Lee Tracy told me that Alyssa is one of her greatest challenges in the gym. She says she competes best in competition when she doesn't overload her mind with too many corrections.
It's a huge opportunity for her. Mary Lee Tracy said on the first night she fell apart, plain and simple, and she said she got distracted by her fans. She actually turned around and waved to them. She acknowledged her fans when they were calling her name. She said, I got to prevent that tonight. Mary Lee said that one of the biggest challenges for her is keeping Alyssa focused at big-time competitions. She knows she has the talent. She just needs to keep her focused on every single element. You know, I talked to Mary Lee Tracy about her. She said her greatest challenge is keeping her focused. She said at this competition, they talked about staying in their own little world, their own little box. She said sometimes Alyssa has too many windows open, and she leaves the drapes opened as well. She just doesn't know how to do it with her.
Although Beckerman did perform better on day 2, she was not selected for the 6-member Olympic team. Instead, she was chosen as a traveling alternate. Alyssa's training partner Morgan White secured a team spot. But when Morgan suffered a foot injury shortly before the games, many assumed Alyssa would step into White's place, given her readiness, skill set, and the fact that she was already in Sydney. After all, she was the traveling alternate, right? But unfortunately, that would not be the case. Bella Caroli, instead, flew Tasha Swaggart in to compete as Morgan's replacement, leaving Alyssa sidelined and silenced. By the time Alyssa was done with her Olympic experience and elite career, she was nearly in shambles. She was suffering from disordered eating, stress-related bleeding ulcers, and had survived 9 broken bones over the years, and while on her way to college was still suffering from a broken wrist. And immediately following the Olympic disappointment, Alyssa traveled from Sydney to California to honor her college commitment to UCLA, arriving with a full scholarship and dreams of redefining her gymnastics journey. Her first year as a Bruin was uneventful, due to finally getting surgery for her wrist. Even though in her second year, she is seen with a wrist wrap for most of the season, which makes me question how well her injuries were actually doing. Her sophomore year was marked by steady beam routines and standout performances that captured the artistry and precision she was known for. In 2002, she was the anchor on beam, a coveted spot on any college gymnastics team without question. During the season, she had an average score 9.77 and became the Pac-10 beam champion as well as the regional South Central beam champion. She had an honorable mention for her academics that year and won the beam event 6 times. Although the Bruins did not win the championship like they did in 2001 and 2003, it was a season Alyssa could be proud of. But just like her experience with Mary Lee Tracy behind the scenes was a horror movie. In Alyssa's words, Miss Val hated her and was plotting against her to get her off the team. It was no secret to the team either. It was not the first time a gymnast on the team was targeted by Miss Val before. What happened next is shocking. In her 3rd year at UCLA, Alyssa is stripped of her full scholarship and kicked out of student housing. Val gets her way and removes her from the team, citing unenthusiastic attitude as the reasoning. Wow. Alyssa stays in school and pays her own way to graduate, but the team she just competed with the year prior, no one even talks to her anymore. It is shocking these actions had Miss Val's name written all over them, even more so now looking back. Because at the time this happened, Miss Val was just starting to build her legacy. The back end of her career is portrayed as rainbows and butterflies. How she made Caitlin Ohashi love gymnastics again and choreographed that epic floor routine. She was the 4-time NCAA Coach of the Year and Pac-12 Coach of the Century. Led UCLA to 7 NCAA national championships, 19 Pac-12 titles, and 36 individual NCAA crowns. I could go on. Treating an athlete. In your care like this as a coach is deplorable and disgusting, no matter how many trophies you have in your case. It's a total abuse of power. She obviously played favorites. How we're made to believe that she was a coaching superpower is regrettable. Alyssa wasn't the only one. Condos Field admits to this type of behavior in her viral TED Talk.
Let me take you back to 1990 when I was first appointed the head coach of the UCLA women's gymnastics team. I became tough-talking, tough-minded, relentless, unsympathetic, bullish, unempathetic, and oftentimes downright mean.
Although Miss Val admits her behavior, does she apologize for it? Does she seem to regret it? I'll let you decide. However, her pristine image at this point needs to be questioned at the very least. On August 20th, 2020, Alyssa Beckerman published an open letter on Twitter, a staggering 28,000 words filled with shocking accounts of toxic, narcissistic, and immature coaching practices that fueled a harmful culture in gymnastics. The letter is a powerful, detailed expose, but due to its length, I won't read it in full here. I encourage you to explore it yourself, and I've included a link in the description box below for those who want to dive into Alyssa's brave and there were many aspects of Mary Lee Tracy's coaching style that were abusive, and I've spoken about them publicly before. To put it lightly, Mary Lee and I clashed on several issues. A big one was my tendency to speak up. No matter how polite I was, the fact that I dared to voice my thoughts was seen as disrespectful. At 18, I was labeled difficult. Once, during a mock meet, I responded to a correction with, "Okay." The judge said, "Oh, I see what she meant now with that attitude." Before committing to UCLA, my mom and I told Miss Val about my tendency to speak up, and she praised it as a strength. It felt like the first glimmer of hope in years. After 1999 Worlds, Miss Val warned my mom that Mary Lee was speaking poorly of me. I considered switching gyms, but I knew leaving would intensify her trash talking. I stayed, but it was clear she didn't want me to succeed. At the Sydney Olympics, I told USAG's Kathy Kelly I wouldn't treat a dog the way they treated us. Preseason training of my junior year, the nightmare began. We were doing 30 different exercises in Venice Beach, followed by a sprint to the ocean. Each station had a specific exercise, and coaches spotted for certain ones. Since my wrist required post-op modifications, I had to adapt. By day 3, I had the routine down. Miss Val added stakes. If the team finished under a certain time, we'd earn a personal day. Motivated, we started. but a substitute coach at one station didn't know my wrist limitations. I quickly explained, substituted an exercise, and moved on. Later, I learned Miss Val called that coach and a teammate into her office to accuse me of cheating. She enlisted the seniors to hold a team meeting to get me to confess. Oblivious, I walked into the meeting, where the seniors spent over 2 hours expressing disgust over a cheater. Me. When the meeting ended, I asked a senior if they thought it was me. "Yes, it was you." "Talk to Miss Val," she replied. Stunned, I confronted Miss Val, calling it a witch hunt. She didn't care and made no apologies. Instead, she mocked me for using the word animosity. Miss Val's manipulation continued. On 9/11's anniversary, I was late to practice after a difficult call from a friend. Miss Val coldly said, "It was a year ago. Get over it." During a New Year's Eve dinner in Hawaii, I opened up to parents from another team about elite gymnastics and Mary Lee Tracy. Miss Val overheard, and when I tried to connect with her afterward, she expressed disgust, accusing me of nerve for standing near her. Her reaction left me sobbing in a dark alley, talking to my brother as fireworks marked the new year. 6. Miss Val later told me she'd reconciled with Mary Lee, knowing how hurtful that was. She began suggesting gymnastics wasn't good for me anymore. In Arizona, she removed me from the floor lineup, citing weight concerns, yet had me anchor beam. When I sarcastically questioned this logic, she insisted I compete. Furious, I nailed my beam routine. Over time, her treatment worsened. She encouraged teammates to mock me, labeling me a locker room lawyer with disdain. 7. After dislocating my knee at Michigan, I needed surgery. Miss Val excluded me from team travel, so I paid my own way to watch NCAAs from the stands. By year's end, she told teammates not to talk to me, isolating me completely. While rehabbing my knee at school, she refused to renew my scholarship but said she'd see how I looked in the fall. I trained hard that summer, even moving home to escape her monitoring. When I returned, I had no housing. Miss Val had told my future roommate not to live with me. 8. Thankfully, my great-aunt took me in temporarily. Despite my progress in training, Miss Val called me into a meeting with Chris Waller to say my scholarship wouldn't be renewed. When I defended my efforts, she smugly said, "We're just agreeing to disagree." I stayed silent, knowing this was about her grudge from years prior. 9. Miss Val ended my career on her terms, refusing to let me finish my senior year with the team, even as support. Her pettiness culminated in a final meeting where she invited me to curse her out. Instead, I calmly said, "I'm pretty neutral." The FU side would say, "Talk to my lawyer." The thank you side would say, "Thanks for the 3 prior years." Then I left, breaking down outside. Too late to transfer, she ensured my career ended with her vindictive control. Beam Breaker presents